As Poland is a bit special, our guests who have relocated here are a bit special too. This is Poland Today, and I'm your host, David Kennedy. If you're like me, then when you pick up a package or buy goods online, you might not be aware of all the processes involved or all the new technology. As Poland is becoming a major hub for international trade, then who best to talk about it all than Peter MacLeod, who's the editor of Logistics Business Magazine. Peter, great for you to come along.
Thank you for inviting me, David. Great to be here on Poland Today.
Now, of course, you've been living in Poland for some time now, and you've even started the process of your getting citizenship.
That's right, I have.
You have a tale to tell, and of course we can also talk about your podcasts. You invited me on to one. But let's first of all look at this world of logistics. So the world behind the package that you get to your door. How do you manage to write out about all of that from a base in Poland? 20 years ago, that would have been impossible.
It would have been, yes. I work remotely. Everything is digital these days. Logistics is interesting, actually. If I can pick you up on a word you chose in the intro there, you called it hidden. And it's a hidden industry. Poland excels at it. So that's logistics, if we can sort of define that, it's the point from when you press buy online to the point where either you pick it up from the parcel locker or the postman delivers it to your front door. Everything in between is logistics. Now, I say Poland's very good at it. Geographically, it's very, very well placed. Now, what has also been Poland's weakness was its geographical location and no hard borders.
Of course. And now I see, as a journalist, you've come very well prepared. You've got some facts and figures there. So what are some fancy facts and figures about the growth of this business in Poland now?
I've got plenty of notes. I'm not going to bore you today with all the numbers, but I think more interesting is the context behind the numbers and why Poland is excelling at logistics. Now, its geographic location at the heart of Europe, famously, has been its downfall sometimes historically in the past, but it's really one of its superpowers today. That means it's ideally placed for example, the Baltic ports feeding trade down into the eastern and southern countries, so the Czech Republic, for example. Mm-hmm. Also, it's west-facing, so around the Poznan area, a very large amount of warehousing there that feed into the manufacturing side. And it's got this wonderful corridor down the south as well, Kraków, Katowice, which takes a lot of trade. There's a lot of business down there as well. So it's very, very well located.
Very well located, and of course they've got all of the infrastructure sorted out as well. So that means essentially, compared to again 20 years ago, that just wasn't there, was it?
No, it wasn't, and I think it's all been driven by e-commerce ultimately, because Poland's a leader in e-commerce, and something perhaps we don't shout about as much as we should in this country. Surprisingly, there's little things behind that, such as Blik, which is such a wonderful payment platform. And as I travel around Europe and the world and talk about Blik, people say, "That's very good. Why don't we have that?" They have similar things, but it's never so seamless and never so straightforward.
As Blik is here, yes.
Exactly, yes. Now, and that's really driven e-commerce because it's now in partnership with, for example, Allegro or InPost as a fulfillment network. It's almost seamless to then sit at home and order something. I don't know about you, I'd rather do that than spend a Saturday afternoon traipsing around a galleria on a hot afternoon.
Well, I suppose, I think I'm a bit younger than you even, but I'm kind of old-fashioned. I'm the shop guy, but my kids, they order on various platforms. Of course, sometimes they order 3 shirts of different sizes and then send back 2 partially because it's so easy to do so.
Yes, and the technology enables that to happen. That's called bracketing in logistics. You buy one that's a bit larger and a bit smaller. And so in fashion, and particularly teen fashion, very, very high volumes of materials that are purchased get sent back into the warehouse, which is a real challenge for the old-fashioned mechanical systems.
Yes.
Now everything's becoming a little bit more digital, a little bit more robotic. AI plays a part in that. It's a very, very strong growing area.
Now, this is the thing, because, I mean, we think of packaging, logistics, etc., as being, the guy who comes from the warehouse and gives the package. But there are fewer of those guys now, and there's an awful lot more robots, aren't there?
There are. And again, talking behind the headlines there, the growth in the robotics side of things is the availability of labour, or lack thereof. Poland is perhaps slightly behind the curve with this challenge because it's had an influx from Ukraine recently over the last few years, and that's helped to slow down the challenges. But like all of Europe, Poland is struggling to recruit into warehousing, into agriculture, into sort of fairly low-level jobs. And to be fair, it's not much fun working in a warehouse. It's backbreaking sometimes. So robotic systems are starting to be quite prevalent, and it's very sophisticated as well, cutting edge.
And of course, you go to these places in various countries. I mean, are you now just amazed at the technology and the hands-on of the robots picking stuff up?
Yeah, it is mind-blowing, David. And again, it's fascinating that you should do that, because that is the hardest part for a robot to replicate, is the human hand coordinated with the human eye. We're so much better at picking things out of a box and putting it in another box to be dispatched than a robot is currently. But there's some really fancy businesses, one just located very close to me here in Warsaw called No Magic, that are developing these very, very clever hands that can decide if that's hot or cold or shiny or heavy or slimy, or if the package is broken or if it's turned the wrong way around. You and I can do that in a split second. But for a robotic hand to do that takes some technology. Poland's leading the way here.
And the question is, you're saying it's driven by a lack of labour, but are there still, when you go into these places, are there still people hanging around there?
Yeah, people hanging around there. So robotics needs oversight, and we call them uglies in the business. If something can't be handled by a robot, you need a human being to intervene. And that typically means an oversized or an odd-shaped parcel or package or item to be picked. Or it could mean that the packaging is torn or broken, or the label can't be read. So you do have a channel where humans intervene. And in an area where cost per hour of labour is relatively cheap compared to the rest of Europe, it's still a little bit cheaper to have a row of human beings in there working shifts than it is to buy the latest robotic technology currently.
Now, one of the trends that we have seen, of course, is the massive increase in the amount of goods that we get from China. Mm-hmm. And I suppose the logistics market is very much a focus of the Chinese these days.
Very much. 25 years ago when I first started in logistics, China was the copier of technology. Things have changed. China is a pioneer. I think we're seeing that in their electric vehicles, domestic electric vehicles. Companies such as BYD are world leaders. And it's the same on warehouse robotics or automation. And that's really where the big advances are being made. As I talked about the hand development, there are other systems as well where you just literally need to get stuff, because you and I drive this. We want our stuff tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So humans can't keep up with our demands. So the robots are whizzing backwards and forwards. So they're faster, they go higher, they got greater capacity all the time, driving forward.
This technology is Chinese.
Predominantly. They've taken a lead. They're very good at it.
One thing that has also been in the news in terms of China is, of course, this question of the tax that they pay or that we will pay if we buy things from China. Is this going to make a difference to the market?
It is going to make a difference to the market, and I could say to you it's going to be good news for Poland, potentially.
Why is that?
So currently, everything under a value of 150 euros comes into this country tax, or comes into the EU tax-free. Now, from the 1st of July this year, they've introduced a €3 levy on all items of any value. So what that means is that these Chinese companies are sending, small value items of less than something that maybe costs €5. When you add €3 to that, they don't have the competitive price advantage anymore. So what they're now looking to do is to reshore their fulfillment operations to, for example, a country which has a great infrastructure and can reach all of Europe. Let's say Poland, right? Picking a map and putting a pin in it. So there's a good opportunity here for Polish businesses to capitalize on this change of tax and to actually use their facilities here as a fulfillment for Chinese firms.
Now that's the thing, though, that's a new development, that you would have Chinese fulfillment here rather than Polish entrepreneurs going over to China and buying a consignment and having it brought over here. So where's the profit going to go? Is the profit going to go still back to China, or there's going to be a little portion of that profit for Polish companies as well?
I would say watch this space. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't get out of bed if I know I'm not going to make a profit in the morning, by the end of the day. No sane Polish businessman would enter into this venture without clearing a profit for himself. There is profit to be made in logistics. Sometimes it's tough and you have to rely on large, high volumes. But if you have the space, which we do in Poland, if you have the height and the technology, which we do in Poland, the world is your oyster.
Now, one of the other aspects of this whole logistics industry is moving goods from country to country within Europe. Now, Poland has been particularly good at that, and they've actually carved out quite a nice corner of the haulage market, haven't they?
They have indeed. Now, historically, sort of around about the time that Poland were introduced into the EU, Polish drivers were paid less. They were prepared to work harder. Maybe the lorries were not as modern as some Western fleets, and therefore a Polish haulier could offer A to B price at a considerable discount versus a German haulier or a French haulier. And that's historically maintained. That's the status quo that's maintained since then.
Okay. And of course, they make their profit because, say, for example, they go from Poland with one lot of goods to Germany, but they don't just come back with an empty truck. They go from place to place in Germany, France, and it used to be that they would basically stay away even for weeks at a time.
Sleeping in their cabs, yes.
And that's changed. That was something called cabotage, wasn't it?
That's right, yes.
And the EU have now changed legislation on that. What effect has that had?
Yeah, that's not such good news for Poland. That's called the mobility package that the EU has introduced. So yes, just to add a bit more flavour to what you're saying, the Polish driver would deliver their goods to, say, Berlin, and then it would bid for work within Germany at a discounted price to whatever a local German haulier could do. And I think the rest of the EU has said, okay, enough. It's not a level playing field. And they've introduced some rules to say over you're allowed 3 cabotage operations within 7 days and then a 4-day cooling off. So they're effectively capping cabotage. So it's not the end of the world for these Polish hauliers, but it's certainly going to restrict the amount of volume that they can carry and therefore the profit they're able to make.
That was one of the things with Brexit that was a problem, wasn't it? Because the Polish driver would not only be delivering goods to the UK, but he would do a trip around the UK before coming back. And then suddenly there was no Polish driver and there was no fuel in the petrol points, etc.
That's right, yeah.
But nevertheless, Polish hauliers still have quite a big share of the market, don't they?
They really do, yes, they really do. And again, that's historical. I think, and I kind of be careful how I frame this. I think the average Polish driver, let's call him Jan Nowak, he's a little bit more willing to work those less comfortable hours, and sleep in less comfortable places than perhaps Jean-François in France or Emmanuel in Spain, if I can use national stereotypical names. And so therefore, he can squeeze more out of his asset than Western European drivers could. So that's triggered a growth in Polish haulage companies, and they're well known. They've got a great reputation. They're reliable, solid, hardworking. But somehow, when there's a vacuum, everything fills, and it's coming up to a little bit more of a balance now. So suddenly, our Jan Nowak wants to be paid as much as his mates across the border, and he wants to sleep in a more comfortable bed rather than squashed in the back of his cab these days. And who would blame him? Again, it's a thankless job.
Well, of course. Now, think just for a second, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit.
Okay.
But if you were to think of trends going forward for Poland, what do you see as something that is going to change over the next few years that will really make a difference?
I think we're going to see Poland as a super hub for European logistics. Now, the development that's taking place, or is about to take place, between Warsaw and Łódź, which is the Port Polska, which is it's more than an airport. It's kind of flagged as an airport, but it's actually a logistics hub. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have high-speed rail network going into there. The roads are going to be improved, and also let's forget it's not actually too far. A little skip up to the Triport area as well. The Tri-City area. So, it's going to be a multimodal hub there. And I think we're going to see that become an absolute critical part of European logistics infrastructure to rival, for example, Frankfurt or Duisburg or Schiphol in Amsterdam.
And of course, you will be here to cover those things because, and I'm segueing now into part 2, because you've made your life here in Poland. Now, maybe say a little bit about how long you've been here and your connection with Poland, because you didn't move here straight away. You've been connected with Poland for quite a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, David. And the plan was always to retire here. And I think what I've done, I brought it forwards a few years. So I met a Polish girl in 1991. We married quickly. We had a shotgun wedding for administrative purposes.
Right, okay.
And there's an interesting story there, which I might return to if we have time.
Yes.
But so being married to a Polish girl, and she was horrified how little I knew about her country and her history, the history of her country. So I had to rapidly come up to speed and met with her family, and here we are. We made a small investment in Krakow 10, 15 years ago now. So that's where our kind of base is. And just about 4 years ago, my wife her job got transferred here to Warsaw. So we thought, let's bring that move forwards a bit.
Okay, so you followed, but you could follow because of the nature of your job, which allowed you to do it from Warsaw.
That's right. And actually, it's quite a strategic place to be. For example, in a couple of months' time, there's a big development opening in Krakow. And, I'm logistics businesses man in Poland, so I can go to that, whereas none of the other editors of UK magazines will be able to attend. So. Right,
so that's your key selling point.
Yeah, my competitive advantage.
Central Europe. Okay, that's very interesting. Now, we met, or shall I say, I think we kind of got introduced through other journalists online or something like that. But the result of a conversation, and I'm invited onto your other project, which is a little podcast called
Pole-ish, Pole-ish. So I'm not Polish. I'm kind of Pole-ish at the moment.
Right, so I qualified as that as well.
Well, you weren't just a guest, you are our very first guest. You know, we have to be careful we don't describe all our guests as special, but you were a bit special, David.
Oh, thank you very much.
Being the first one. Yes, so we launched Polish. There's probably two reasons. One is a bit more nefarious than the other. First of all, I wanted to become a little bit more embedded here. I wanted to feel like I belonged here a bit more than just, learning the language. And so hosting a podcast about our life here in Poland was a chance to really drill down into some of the culture and the history and, talk about food and all that sort of stuff, and mannerisms and habits and all the kind of Polish stuff that's so wonderful and interesting and different to the Western audience.
All the interesting stuff that I don't necessarily cover, but which is why it was so nice to be on your show.
Yes.
But one of the interesting things that you do is you always ask people about the administrative side of dealing with residency and citizenship. And one of the great things about you is you've started the process, and that involved also passing an exam in Polish. And not many expats do that. What was your journey to that?
Journey to that was, again, it was that need to feel more integrated with my adopted homeland. My conversations for example, at the market on the Saturday morning was pointing to stuff and hoping that he put the right thing in the bag. And that wasn't really good enough. I wasn't really engaging with the local community that way. So learning Polish was important. If I can turn back 25 years, I needed to communicate with my Polish family because they didn't really speak English. So that got me up to a very basic conversational, you could say dinner table kind of level up to a point. But that now out in the wild world, that doesn't really cut the mustard. So I've had to go up to B1 level, and also that gives me the opportunity to apply for Polish citizenship once I've attained that B1 standard.
Okay, and is it hard? B1? I don't know.
It's basic conversational. I mean, I would say yes, it is hard, and the older I get, the harder it is. We all know about the Polish grammar rules and the different cases. A lot of it is a memory game, and I'm not very good at remembering stuff, hence the notes. But also, it's just every day you need to read, you need to watch the TV, listen to podcasts, you need to get out into the street, you need to talk to the shopkeeper or the doctor or the mechanic, have those everyday conversations. Suddenly it does become a little easier.
And what about that dreaded trip to the urzędy, to the
Yes.
local offices? Now, from my point of view, I remember going down dark corridors and talking to rather kind of surly people. That's kind of changed these days. What is the experience of the guests on Polish? Because it's different for different people.
With 22 guests, 22 stories about administration. There's been quite a range. I mean, I'm very careful that, I present a podcast about Poland. I'm not here to knock Poland. And it would have been really easy for me every week to say, what is it that's cheesed you off about Poland this week?
Yeah.
That's not us. We like to say, tell us about your experience. How was it? How can people learn from that?
Yeah.
And so, one of my guests, Tom, married a Polish girl. He had to do it in a hurry as well. Now, his story is the reverse of mine.
Yes.
Post-Brexit, post-Poland being in the EU, he's had to come over here and quickly get the admin done before he then goes back to Poland and does the sort of the family and the church stuff, whatever. So that's changed. I think the overriding theme is it's very difficult to negotiate and to navigate if you don't speak at least a little bit of Polish.
Uh-huh.
One of my guests, Raphael, he's come from Nigeria. He's got the most beautiful smile. It's disarming. It would charm anyone. But if you don't speak Polish, the smile's not going to get you anywhere.
So learning the language or having maybe somebody with you to negotiate through those various stages.
Good advice. I had an immigration lawyer as a guest on the podcast, and it's been one of our most downloaded episodes as people try to get that knowledge. I mean, I went through the immigration process. I was very lucky that I had an immigration firm of lawyers helping me.
Yeah.
one thing I had to do, they asked me to download a form off the Jean's website,
Yes.
print it off. So I printed it off, put in all my details. I had an appointment. They said, bring the form along. I took the form into the office. And for the first half an hour, the lady sitting there was just typing the details back into the form that I literally downloaded the day before. So stuff like that is frustrating and annoying. And you think, this could be so much better. Mm-hmm. But it's getting there. It's getting more joined up. It really is.
I mean, I remember when I first came over here, the company I was working with was doing a lot of these things. And there was one chap who who worked with the legal department, Adam Penko, who then went on to form his own company. And I mean, part of his skill was, going along to see, Pani Director or whatever with a box of chocolates.
Oh, yes.
And smiling and remembering the name day and that kind of thing. And treating people in a kind of a personal way. That's what one of your guests said. Was it Rafael?
Absolutely. He said, go in there with a look to see if there's a photo on the windowsill. Is that your grandson, or you play golf? Little things like that. Suddenly they're treated like human beings, and it's it opens up.
Now, on your podcast, you have your special sections. We also have a little bit like that here, and we always like to ask people if they can point to a specific time in your Polish journey where things have pivoted, where you've noticed a real change that has happened. What would that year be for you?
I find it hard to frame that in a single year. Okay. Because of my journey has been over the course of 35, 35 years. Goodness me, where did that go? So I would say over that timeline, the significant factors have been Poland ascending into the EU, Britain voting in Brexit. And the things that have changed around that have been the travel into and out of and around Poland. And so I'm seeing, tremendous infrastructural investment from the EU around some of the roads in particular. So now, for example, our family is down on the Slovakian border, my Polish family.
Yes.
We could just jump in a car and pop down there in 4.5 hours, which would have been unheard of 20 years ago.
Of course.
So things like that has really opened up the opportunities.
And Brexit has closed some of the opportunities?
Yeah, it has. If anything, I've kind of doubled down in Poland, so maybe it's a benefit for me as a Brexit benefit. It's kind of made me a little bit disappointed and sad about my own country. But this is not a politics show, is it?
Well, what can we do on that? Now, that's an important date. What about if you're thinking of that time in history, of a person that you think has made a difference?
I was sort of like, I've been overthinking this, I think, and I ended up, I'm going to say the person who first came to mind, that's my mother-in-law, Pani Teresa, because from I might have arrived from another planet as far as she was concerned in 1991. I wasn't from the village, I wasn't from Poland, I didn't speak Polish, I wasn't Catholic. I was going to take her daughter away from the village and relocate her on the other side of the world, as far as she would have known, back in 1991. So, but the way she warmly embraced me, she's an ex-teacher, she was a current teacher at the time. Okay. She communicates with me to this day like she would communicate with an infant. And that's absolutely perfect for me. I've never been in a situation when there's just been the two of us where I haven't understood exactly what she wants or what she's talking about or what she means, and the other way around.
So anybody who's out there who's contemplating marriage should not be afraid of the Polish mother-in-law.
Flowers help, David. Flowers help.
Okay. And a special place in Poland where you have noticed things change over that time.
So around about the mid-90s, they put a dam across the River Dunajec to create Lake Charleston.
Yes.
It's beautiful. For any of the viewers who've been there, you've got two castles on the other side of the valley. It looks like the lake is man-made with the reflections of the castles there, Charleston and Nijica. It's beautiful. And for 20-odd years, it was almost like a wilderness. You could go down there and amble next to the lake shore. Now they built a bike pathway all the way around it. And it's become a destination. So I was there a couple of weeks ago. In fact, my co-host on the podcast, John, was cycling around there not so long ago, absolutely, extolling the virtues of this beautiful part of Poland. And how has it changed? Well, it's become a little bit more popular now. You're seeing some developments starting. We used to, during COVID, when we were living in Poland, we used to sneak out there to get our sanity back and get a bit of fresh air. Now that's all been blocked off. They're building hotels there. So, everything changes.
They're building hotels down there. So this is something that has definitely been accelerated over the past few years. The number of people who are coming to Poland, who are touring around. I mean, 30 years ago, if you told somebody that you were going on your holidays to Poland, what would they have thought?
They would go, why? Or where? Yeah. No, it's very true. And I think what we're seeing also is a lot of apartments being bought, and sadly, a lot of them look like they just sat there empty. So, investment as well. So, we can't knock it, but, it'd be nice if a few of those were brought into use.
Peter, it's been a great opportunity to get you on here. A few details that I've discovered during our chat. We, of course, we see each other also for the odd coffee here and there.
We do indeed.
But it's great to have you on Poland Today.
Thank you, David. It's been a great pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you. And I've got something for you.
A bit of a cultural exchange.
Indeed. A Poland Today mug. And what's this?
This is my Logistics Business Conversations podcast mug.
Business conversation. Very good. Logistics conversations.
Logistics Business Conversations for anybody who wants to know about the world of logistics.
There we go.
Not just Poland, but...
Well, thanks very much for that.
Thank you,
All the
David.
best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.